What's up, everybody? Welcome to my review of the Yikun Discs Dragon Line Day. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. There is a name listed right there. I'm not exactly sure how that is meant to be pronounced, and I really don't know. So I'm going to stick with what I just said there and go with it. It ultimately doesn't really matter. I actually asked Yikun, and I don't even believe I'm pronouncing the name of the company correctly, to be perfectly honest as well. But I kind of just have to sound it out. I don't really know what else to do. But I had asked them early on in our correspondence how to pronounce the name of this disc, and they weren't exactly able to explain it to me, and they never really got back to me on that, so I'm just going to roll with it. Doesn't really matter. Great disc, though. Definitely enjoyed the flight of this one. This is probably my favorite out of the ones that I have tested out of this shipment. This is the last one. I did the Tomahawk, the Meteor Hammer, the Hammer. I also did the Twin Swords and the Luan, and this is the final one I had in my testing stock, so definitely been fun to check out a new company's stuff and see how it compares to other stuff on the market. Let's take another look at this guy, PDGA approved. There's the logo, no problem with the artwork there, and here are your flight numbers, 13, 5, 0, and 3. Now, I would probably adjust these slightly and maybe say -1 or maybe even -2 and 3. Maybe -1, 2 might make a little bit more sense. It's definitely not as overstable as these numbers might suggest, but that seems to be a theme. And as we know, it's extremely subjective and it's difficult to dial in. So especially with them being a new company, I cut them some slack on that. Maybe they'll adjust the numbers over time based on feedback from players like myself and anybody else out there. And we'll see. I might report back to them with some of my findings on that and see what they have to say about that. But no huge deal. But yeah, definitely some natural turns. So I'm not in agreement with the 0 at all. I would say -1, maybe -2. Taking a look at this guy, it's got a little bit of dome to it. It'll pop a little. It's pretty flat overall, though. I wouldn't call it domey, really. But it'll pop a little bit. You know, it's not board flat by any means. It's got a little bit. Oh, here's the weight on this guy, as well as some other information on the bottom of the disc, which is cool. No problem with that. There is yikunsports.com. That's how you can go check them out. Definitely thank you to them once again for sending me this thing to test and review, along with a lot of other great plastic I was able to add to the playlist here. And you can see, relatively sharp. It doesn't feel like uncomfortable in the hand or anything, but it's not. It definitely comes to a relatively sharp point there on the outside edge, which I think lends to some of the speed of this disc. Definitely a noticeably quick disc in the air. I like the feel of it just fine. I don't mind wide rims. I don't mind the sharpness, the way it lines up in my particular throwing grip. It really isn't a big deal. It's maybe a little bit pointy in the hand, like it's not like ultra comfortable, but I had no problems throwing it, controlling it. The plastic reminds me very much of the Big Z plastic from Discraft. It's got a similar kind of pearliness to it, but it's got that premium feel. Good grip, good feel. I like it. No issues whatsoever with the feel of this disc. The way it lines up in my grip feels nice, and I was able to throw it and control it pretty well. No real issue. Let's put it up next to a couple other options. First of all, we have a Z Thrasher. Here are your flight numbers on the Thrasher, which, yeah, those are probably pretty close. This particular one, not as flippy as you might think based on those numbers, but again, you know, flight numbers, what can you say? I've talked about them plenty here on the channel. You guys get the gist on that. So you can see the Yikun disc definitely sharper, has a little bit more width to the rim, so I think it makes sense that it is a 13 speed compared to a 12. Also, straight out of my bag, this is the Goldline Burst Havoc. Beautiful, excellent disc, and you can see similar width to the rim there, but the Havoc has a flatter edge here, where the Day has a little bit more of a scoop on the underside, as you can see there. This Havoc has a little bit of more of a pop-top dome on it. Looking at it from the top down, maybe a little bit more similar in terms of the shape there, but not a huge difference in terms of the width, at least. Definitely a little bit thinner, pointier edge, as we discussed there, but no real detriment to the disc. So all in all, as I said, I like the feel. No problem with it. It's got a good grip. Sinks into my hand nice. I can really tuck it in. Sometimes I feel like when you have that wide rim, it really allows you to get that extra torque of your fingers pulling it into your palm. And it just feels nice and secure and definitely a fun disc to throw. Let's get into the flight footage of this thing. We got me and James out there throwing it. Really enjoyed the flight of this thing. It's got a nice little flip up to it, just a hair. Like I said, I don't agree with the 0. I would say -1 or 2. But there's a noticeable little tick up, but it's not like something that's going to flip and roll over on you. Me and James are both pretty comfortable controlling more understable stuff, so take that into account. If you were somebody who really rips flat to, you know, maybe slight anhyzer, you probably get more of an understable flight out of this thing, no doubt. But for our throwing style, it worked out really well. It was pretty intuitive. We had no real trouble controlling it. I like it for just a straight shot with a decent fade at the end of the flight. Put it on some slight anhyzer, you can get it to hold a nice smooth turn without it getting like real squirrely or getting down and wanting to roll too much. We did have some wind out there in the field for this particular review, so take that into account, but it was kind of swirling and changing direction. It wasn't really something that we could get a super solid feel for it. Otherwise I would have tried to put that data on the screen or something, but it was just changing too much in that field we were throwing in. It was coming in and kind of changing directions. So if you see it, you know, flip a little bit more, that might be part of it, is that we did have a little bit of wind out there during testing. But all in all, a solid disc that I liked very much. I would say it's a little bit more flippy than the Havoc. Definitely has a little bit more stand up to it, especially this gold burst one. And not terribly dissimilar to a Thrasher in terms of flight. Has a little bit more stability, and I would say it is kind of a little bit faster, a little bit noticeably faster for sure, but it's a great disc. Definitely got out there with good speed, good distance, and it's a nice throwable distance disc. I was expecting it to be pretty overstable, and after a few shots, I'm like, man, I really like this thing. We both connected with it pretty well, and had really no trouble getting good distance flights out of it. Nice and straight, little flip up to straight, maybe a little flip over and ride. Would hold some anhyzer as well, and it will hold a nice hyzer, smooth hyzer down the line, and you can get it to just flip up, fly nice and flat and straight for a while, and have a little fade once it starts to hook up due to that speed and the kind of wide rim nature of the disc. So all in all, I think inarguably our favorite driver that we tested from the Yikun line, and probably the best disc that we tested out of all of them. You know, it's pretty subjective, and I enjoyed some of the other discs in the testing as well, but I definitely like this one. It stood out as a really great flyer that I could see finding its way into a lot of different players' bags. So that is my review. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing to the channel if you've not done so already. Stay tuned for future uploads and all that kind of good stuff. And also, big thank you to the Disc Golf Nerd Patreon support team for their continued support. Thank you to Yikun once again for hooking me up with some of their great plastic to test, review, and get added to my playlist to show off to you guys. Thanks for your support. I'll check you later. Cheers. Thank you so much for watching, and big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. If you would like to see your name listed in the credits of all of my videos, go to patreon.com/discgolfnerd.